The old barn had always held its share of secrets, but none deeper than the door on the far wall, battered and painted dull red. Even as a little boy, Sam had been told never to touch it. "That door stays shut. You hear me?" his father would say, eyes steely, voice low. No further explanation offered, no stories to soak the fear. Now on the edge of 17, Sam lingered at the threshold with a wrench of curiosity in his chest, light spilling across the padlock and dust swirling in the air. All his life, that warning shadowed his steps. Sometimes, in moonlight or thunder, he'd swear he heard something shift behind the boards, something forgotten but not gone. Lately, the need to know grew sharper, edging out fear, especially as cracks appeared elsewhere in the family's silence. What lay behind that door? Was it anger, shame, an old mistake, or the answer to every story his father never told? The door waited, stubborn as a riddle, and Sam's world tilted closer to the moment everything would change. Their farm stretched over the same rolling hills that Sam's great-great-grandfather had cleared with nothing but a mule and a borrowed axe. The old farmhouse stood half-sunk into sweet clover, with the faded porch swing that Sam's mother favored in late summer dusk. His father, Roy, ruled the land and the family, with the same hard discipline he brought to every acre, a barrel-chested man, jaw weathered as fence posts and hands always busy, never soft. Roy's pride was measured in straight furrows and tight-latched barn doors, in debts paid and reputations kept. Every mistake, he reminded Sam, was another meal owed to the ground, another reason for folks to whisper. Sam's mother moved differently, quiet, observant, always ready to smooth rough words spoken too fast. Her tenderness was rarely public, but Sam noticed how her hands lingered on his shoulders, how she'd leave a lamp burning if he stayed late in the fields. Unlike his father's firm footsteps, Sam slipped through life with gentleness, catching frogs by the creek, tending runts in the barn, watching clouds drift for hours. He often wondered if something in him would always resist the family mold. Beneath his father's rules and his mother's hush, Sam's heart beat restless, drawn to stories the land kept hidden, and puzzles buried deeper than any plow could reach. Sam grew up in the shadow of questions. Sometimes at family gatherings, he'd catch the older folks exchanging uneasy glances when the conversation drifted toward past seasons or his grandfather's name. A box of old photographs sat buried in a dresser drawer, faces smiling, arms linked, but one figure always torn from the corners. On stormy nights, when lightning flickered along the ridge and thunder rattled the roof, Sam heard his parents' voices rise in the dark, sharp and tense, the words murky, but always ending with, "Leave it be." It was as if the house itself held its breath whenever the barn door rattled in the wind. In school, Sam grew used to walking the halls with a sense of inherited oddness, classmates sometimes repeating old rumors about his family. He watched his father's eyes go hard whenever strangers asked about the past or peered too long at the barn. Even Sam's mother, usually so open, closed off instantly when he tried to ask about the family's history. Over time, Sam learned to read between the lines of silence, seeing how secrets twisted through their home like roots searching for water, sometimes holding the family upright, but more often making them brittle just when they needed to bend. One muggy afternoon, when the crickets were loud and no one was watching, Sam slipped into the barn with a racing heart and sweaty palms. The forbidden door's padlock, rusty but firm, caught the sunlight like an accusation. He ran his fingers over the grooves, testing them as if they might give, rehearsing excuses in his mind should anyone walk in. A small voice urged him to turn back, but curiosity hummed louder. He pocketed a loose nail from the workbench, nudged the lock, but it held tight, a stubborn relic of his father's discipline. At the faint sound of footsteps in the yard, Sam jumped away, heart thudding. Later, his father's glance seemed sharper, a question hidden behind his blunt words. Guilt gnawed at Sam all evening, wondering if his father already knew he'd tried. That night, torn between loyalty and longing, Sam promised himself to stay away. But every time he passed the barn, the urge to know what waited inside only grew. The secret felt bigger than the lock could hold, tugging at him every day. Sam found himself avoiding his father for days, but came to linger more often at the garden's edge, where his mother's father, Grandpa Eli, leaned on a hoe, humming tunelessly as he weeded onions. Eli had a gift for talking without seeming to pry, letting silences fill with trust until words emerged on their own. One evening, as thunderheads stacked on the horizon, Sam admitted how he felt caught between wanting to know and fearing the cost. Eli's gaze softened, his hands knotted with decades of work. "There's always doors, Sam. Some meant to keep danger out, some to keep sorrow in. A family story, good or bad, can be heavier than stones, especially when only one person is left to carry it." Eli paused, voice slowing with memory. "Your father lost more than you know. Sometimes, when people lock things away, it's not just about hiding from others. It's from themselves too. But sooner or later, truth has a way of creaking open. Takes courage to face what's behind an old door, but it takes love to face it together instead of alone." Sam let the words settle, feeling both braver and sadder than before. The secret wasn't just a mystery to solve. It was a wound waiting for someone to listen. Trouble simmered until it boiled over one rainy night, when harsh words cracked across the kitchen, his father snapping at Sam for asking too many questions, his mother wiping silent tears behind the pantry door. The air felt thick with old pain, every corner of the house colder for it. That evening, Sam wandered to the barn in the dark, more desperate than curious, the need to break the silence burning in his chest. He rattled the forbidden door, anger and shame clashing in his mind, but the heavy lock refused to budge. Kneeling on the hay-strewn floor, Sam pressed his forehead to the cool wood, the urge to give up stronger than ever. Doubts bloomed. Maybe he was making things worse. Maybe some secrets should stay buried. As thunder shook the rafters and rain lashed the roof, Sam's courage ebbed away, leaving him as lost and small as the moment he'd first wondered what his father hid. For the first time, he was ready to walk away, until something inside whispered, "Not yet." Days passed before fate nudged the moment open. Sam returned from school to find the barn unlocked, his father gone to town, the old padlock dangling loose on its hinge. He hesitated, heart pounding between fear and hope. Palms sweating, he eased the heavy door open, hinges complaining in the quiet. Inside, dust motes danced in golden beams from a forgotten window, swirling over crates, trunks, and a battered army duffel. The air felt both sacred and sad. On a rickety shelf, Sam found faded letters, tied with frayed ribbon, and a box heavy with medals, their ribbons dulled by time. One journal, corners bent and pages full of looping handwriting, told stories he'd never heard. A young man's dreams of returning to the land after war, a son's promise broken by a tragedy no one dared name. Newspaper clippings spoke of a barn fire, and letters described the guilt Sam's grandfather carried, his father's desperate efforts to recover, shared only in private ink. There were old photographs too, faces young and shining, a brother Sam never knew about, whose loss turned joy into hardness in the family line. Tears prickled as Sam pieced together the quiet heroism, failures, and love behind his father's stern silence. The secret was not shame, but sorrow, hidden only because the pain was too much for words. When Sam finally carried the journals and medals inside, his father stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, eyes locked on the old duffel. For a long time, neither spoke. Then, as Sam laid the items on the table, his father's pride melted into something rawer. His shoulders shuddered, and tears welled in eyes Sam had only known as hard. What began as awkward silence grew into a long night of story sharing, with his mother joining, soft, forgiving, until the whole truth was spoken. The fire, the lost brother, the struggle to rebuild, and the burden Roy bore alone. Word trickled through the community, and for the first time, neighbors came with offerings rather than questions. Former whispers faded into respect as stories spread, of bravery and heartbreak, not scandal. Old friends and distant cousins mailed back letters and photographs, filling new albums with the family's hidden chapters. Sam's father, once quick to close off, learned to accept comfort instead of judgment. The barn's door was finally left ajar, a symbol of transparency and strength, and the once weighty silence in the family home slowly gave way to gentle laughter, shared memories, and the healing bonds of truth reclaimed. Years later, Sam looked back on that summer, understanding how much silence had cost his family, not just in missed stories, but in love withheld for fear of pain. He realized that in rural life, strength was often measured in hardship, endured alone, secrets kept so tightly they changed entire generations. But the old door in the barn had taught him something truer. That healing comes not from hiding darkness, but from letting light find it. For every family, on every patch of ground, the past is always part burden, part blessing, a collection of wounds and gifts passed down, meant to be faced together. Sam learned that opening a door, however difficult, could change the course of a family's story. Courage, he saw, isn't just facing storms outside. It's choosing to tell what hurts and to listen gently to the truths that surface. In the end, it wasn't what lay behind the door, but the honesty that followed, that changed everything he knew about where and who he came from. Have you ever uncovered a secret or story in your family that changed how you saw everything, or everyone, around you? Maybe it was an old letter, a hidden keepsake, or a truth finally spoken that brought healing or understanding. Share your own experience in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from, and let's build a space where honesty, courage, and family discovery are celebrated. Your voice and your memories can inspire and comfort others who carry their own untold stories, so add yours, and help grow this community of truth and hope.